Hey guys, welcome to the Star Wars Fight Analysis, the series where I take the mini duels of the franchise and assess them, cross-referencing the lore to get a full evaluation of each engagement. Today we'll be looking at the cave fight between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader.
That place is strong, but the dark side of the Force, a domain of evil it is. And you must go.
Just a quick note before we get into the actual fight. There has been a lot of debate about the nature of the Dark Side Cave, and Dagobah at large. In Legends continuity, as early as Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy, there has been this notion that the Dark Side Cave was created by a Dark Jedi during the Clone Wars. Luke muses that Yoda hid there to cloak himself from Vader and Palpatine. Yoda, being the avatar of light that he was, could only mask himself in the deep dark side energy of the planet, and notably, the cave. Legends continuity also saw an alternate reality where Qui-Gon was able to train Anakin, introducing him to the Dark Side Cave, and it's also made an appearance in The Force Unleashed, and several other pieces of media. Outside of that, the cave has been identified as the Magic Tree, which is kind of interesting to me because in the new canon there was this notion of these Force trees that were in Shattered Empire, like Luke Skywalker goes on this whole mission looking for these Force trees, which never really got paid off, at least not yet within the canon, but they definitely set up that seed. Haha, seed, because you get it, tree, seed. That's kind of funny to me. Moving on, George Lucas in his original scripts wrote the cave as simply the Cave of Evil. Currently within the canon, the cave was introduced to Yoda when he followed the little magical dots that were Qui-Gon Jinn's energy on his journey to retain his consciousness with the Force. But all that aside, it's just a bad place with a bad juju where bad things happen to good people. Let's continue watching the scene. To start the scene, we get a little insight from the novelization and the comic book adaptation. Luke is becoming more confident with his use of the Force. One of his training exercises is to cut a silver bar as many times as he can before it hits the ground. In the novel, Yoda praises him for cutting it 4 times, but in the comic, Yoda scolds Luke and says he should have cut it into 7 pieces. Definitely some inconsistency there, which happens quite often in the old Legends continuity.
What's in there?
Sorry, one more detour, but I love Mark Hamill as an actor. I really feel that he is so underrated as Luke Skywalker. This is a very small moment, I admit, but he goes from almost saying why to what's inside. It's a very natural and authentic response, and it really just shows how great of an actor Mark Hamill is and how subtle and how real he is in his performance. And you don't really even remember, at least for me, I don't remember that he's talking to a puppet half the time because he's so committed to the performance.
Only what you take with you.
I always like this line. It's a great message in general. A battle is dictated by what you bring into a fight. Not just physically, like a blaster or a lightsaber, but mentally. What kind of mentality are you bringing to a conflict? Are you looking for a fight, or are you looking to pacify? And as the novel says, at first, Luke says he'll take his courage and his willingness to learn, but ultimately decides he is not up to the challenge, wanting to bring his weapons with him as a bit of an equalizer for whatever it is he'll face in the cave. I always thought of the cave as a kind of a huge Bogart. For those of you who are Harry Potter fans, you know Bogarts are shapeshifters that mold themselves around our greatest fears. For Harry Potter, that was a Dementor in The Prisoner of Azkaban. For Luke Skywalker, that of course was Darth Vader. The fight itself really doesn't have much to go off of. The fight isn't really about the ability or the craft, but rather about a mentality. My takeaway, as it is for most, is that Luke ultimately failed the test by meeting Vader with his lightsaber, instead of with his Jedi compromise, as he will go on to learn in the next film.
I will not fight you, Father.
The lesson is that if Luke goes into a confrontation looking for a fight, he will become Vader. He'll be no better than the monster he is trying to vanquish. While the movie makes this message clear to me, the novel has a slightly different take, and it's a little less interesting to me. Luke doesn't fight with any real aggression or malice or pride. He's actually quite centered in his use of the Force, using it with clarity. I suppose one could argue that he had the physical aspect of the Force down fine, which wasn't the issue in this fight. At this point, he was ready to fight Vader physically, but it was his mindset that was being challenged. Of course, the mental game he would need to defend himself would come up with Vader, but for very different reasons than facing the fear of fighting Vader. But the fact that Vader is sort of, well, his father. Spoiler alert, but I don't really think I needed to say spoiler alert. The book goes on to note that Luke muses the whole thing was a trick by Yoda, which made me wonder what Yoda thought about Luke's failure at the cave. It definitely does not inspire confidence in the Jedi Master, noting that Luke was not ready to leave Dagobah when he eventually decided to go.
Remember your failure at the cave.
But I've learned so much since then. Master Yoda, I promise to return and finish what I've begun. You have my word.
But in that moment, I always wonder what Yoda felt. Did he feel like he should continue training Luke? Did he feel like, is that just part of the natural progression of becoming a Jedi? You're gonna have some hills and valleys. I always wondered at that particular moment, like, what was Yoda exactly thinking about Luke's failure? I'm sure he was thinking about Obi-Wan and how he was like, aha, I told you so. He's just like Anakin Skywalker. He's gonna do the same exact things. He's gonna make the same exact mistakes. In the context of my Versus series, I would call this fight a majority victory, with Luke taking 10 out of 10 matches against Vader. The fight was never really about ability. It was never meant to be a test about Luke's capabilities as a lightsaber duelist, but rather his abilities to mentally deal with Vader and the passions of combat. I would also say this metaphysical fight was always an early fight victory, a quick draw duel that was never meant to go very long. Of the other lightsaber duels that I have analyzed, this one would currently stand as my number 4 favorite lightsaber duel behind Darth Sidious and Mace Windu. It's not a bad fight, but it's not one I really think of all the time with any general fondness or otherwise. But that's it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Is this your favorite Star Wars duel ever, or do you have another favorite? Check out my playlist for more lightsaber analysis videos, and of course, peace, love, and may the Force be with you. Always.